is 1 + 1 = 1. I just want my viewpoint and my viewpoint only. And so there's a lot of work to create organizations and thinking that difference is about value versus difference is about disagreement and those things. So a lot of this is instilled in the conditioning of our society, and it's being instilled more at times today. The divisiveness from all parties, and I'm not pointing a finger at anybody, is just the norm, while we're still hanging in there because there's a movement, though, of unity, which is the way we're talking about this work today. And a movement of unity where just good people are finding each other and say, look, we don't want this anymore. Regardless of our background, we just don't want this anymore. We do believe in love and care and concern for people, and that we can bring things to a better place when we drive it in that way. And so, you know, my phone has been ringing like crazy for the last 3 months or so. It's just been amazing. And if I didn't know better, I would think I was important. But the reality is just, it's a different day today. You know, I've been doing this 30 years. It's a different day today, the way this is being heightened. And it's interesting, when all this unrest took place, you know, everybody was just stuck on their couch. And you couldn't do nothing but take it in, you know. If this had happened during a different year, we would have been watching the NBA finals and would not have had that type of emphasis, but there was nothing going on but like this. And so it just heightened everybody's awareness, and it started some conflict, but it definitely started a movement of how do we work better together. And that's our motto today. We are better together to drive change where everybody is maximized, as Tim mentioned in his opening comments. Yeah.
That's great. So, you know, what I want to talk about a little bit later is how diversity in the workplace can build a stronger culture and build a better organization. But I want to come back to, this is, you know, racism is a learned, we've established that it's a learned trait. So do you have thoughts, or, you know, like, how do we start by re-educating? And I think you had mentioned something like, it's got to start in your heart. Well, you know, a racist is not going to say, well, you know what, maybe I was wrong. How do we engage in conversations with people that are not in favor of diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, you know, as you mentioned to start this off, I think love is the key. And so love is not an extension of like. And many times people look at love as, if I like you a whole lot, now I love you. No, love has no relationship with like. Love is a condition of the heart and care and concern for everyone. So people are who they are because they came from where they came from. And if I came from a different place, I would be a different person. You know, my mother and my father were just unbelievable as far as instilling strong love values in me. So our goal in starting this conversation is to meet people where they are. And if they're not where we want to be, we can't go in with judgment. We got to go in with love. And so again, the mindset that you have around dealing with those individuals is first to understand them. And then we got to look at language, because the term racist has been blown out and it's really misunderstood. And so ism, like racism, the term ism just means difference is less than. So in our society, there's sexism, racism, it's just difference as less than. And in many ways, every man is a sexist. In many ways, every white person is a racist. Now, that's a difference between being a bigot. Now, bigotry is when you hate those who are different. But racism is when the subtleties of your mindset are just saying things and doing things that are showing up in a way that may be impactful on different people that you're not intended or intended, so we got to address it.
Interesting.
So the other day I was doing a little webinar, and a guy said, oh, Doug, you're just so articulate. I said, oh boy. I said, 30 years, I'm still dealing with that one. I'm so articulate. Now, he didn't have any bad intentions, but in his mind was, I wasn't expecting you to be articulate. So, boy, you sure did damn surprise me being articulate. There's a racist component to that, but that's not a hatred component. That's a subtlety that's instilled in him that people like me aren't that articulate. And so I can't attack him for that.
It's not bigotry, it's racism.
Yeah, that's what racism is. These subtleties taking place, and they're everywhere. In this police situation, and the difference of treatment for people from different backgrounds, you just don't see this. Everybody goes through this. No, everybody doesn't. This is different treatment taking place for individuals who are African American or Black that creates this system. That's in the society. That's systemic. It's not that we're born with it. It just gets enhanced as we move through society. Yeah. So we have to be willing. We have to be patient. You know, we have to understand where people are coming from. And we have to think that we're helping them grow versus we're correcting them. We're helping them grow. So when that guy said that, I'm like, oh my God, don't you call me articulate. Man, no. I got it, man. Look, I know you didn't mean anything. You're just one of those smart individuals who realize how smart I am, so you want to acknowledge that. That's what I'm saying. But the reality is this. I kind of gave him the subtleties of what that can mean. He was like so apologetic. And he said, look, man, thank you so much for sharing that with me. And he said, I've said that many times in the past. But because he got love, now he changed. If I had beat him upside the head, he would have probably stayed away from Black people for the rest of his life because he's scared to make another mistake. So we have to be big people and be willing to assist in the growth and development of others. And there's a big movement now. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of helping other people. Well, you know, if you're alive, your role is to help other people. If you're breathing, your goal is to help other people grow. Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, Doug. In my like personal reflection of this, I don't know if it was something I read or somebody said something to me. I was watching a video of somebody speaking, but they were talking about the touch points that we all have throughout our life. And there's, a million transactions that we all have. So when I look at myself, for me personally, white male, primarily white neighborhood that I grew up in, like I think back to all the interactions that I had with teachers along the way, or like a little bit of positive encouragement here along the way. And then I got into the college that I wanted to. And then I got my first job, my entry-level role, and then I was a salesperson. So like all the little sales interactions along the way that, helped me become where I am today to save money and then to start a business. Like I think about that, and I wonder like how as I'm leading an organization, like what are those touch points that I'm responsible for, that I can create a culture around that can bring in people of all races, genders, backgrounds, regardless, so they feel like they have a path here. And maybe I'm jumping ahead too much to like the workplace element of it, but can you speak to that a little bit? Maybe some of the transactions along that way and how that shows up in business?
Yeah, no question. I think there are what you would call natural touch points that we have during the course of our life. And then there are intentional touch points that we have during the course of my life. So when I grew up in the inner city of Hartford, there just was not a lot of touch points, anything other than people like myself. I went to the prep school, I got a whole different element of touch points because it was just different people. And then I was in the Army, and it's so funny, going to a prep school from where I grew up, I thought every white person was extremely wealthy. And I went to the Army. I'm like, oh my God, there's some poor white people in the world. I had no idea around that because my touch points of white people were prep school white people. We had 37 Rolls Royce at my high school graduation, 37. And my father gave me the Ford for the first time, and I was excited. but that was just where I grew up. And so we have to get intentional with our touch points. And we got to look at our networks. We got to look at our confidants. We got to say, who am I missing in this network? And then how do I grow and learn from expanding my network? And how do I help support and grow others in expanding my network? So many times when I'm working with executives, they'll say, Doug, give me one thing to do diversity better. And I say, find some new friends. You know, they want this big action plan. I'm like, no, you just find some new friends so you can have true, real discussions with around what's taking place. And you trust them enough and believe in them enough to take that into your life and build your process. And so then you instill that value in your company around people getting to know and build relationships and expanding their network as a norm. And this isn't a nice to do, but it's all about growing and expanding how we see the world so we can deal with our customers better, build our businesses better. You know, this isn't nice to do. This just expands your capability box. Yeah. That makes sense, Tim?
That's great. I wrote down find some new friends. Like if there's a lot of takeaways that I'm having, but like that.
I'm taking Tim. I love you, man, but I'm taking you got to find another black guy somewhere that you.
No, that's it. Do you want to be my friend, Doug, please? No, I think it's.
Bill takes up all my time. I got no. He takes up all my time.
No, it's fair enough. I think, I have a 3-person sales team. I'll speak to like a specific example. I have a 3-person sales team. We don't do the cold calling thing. We find strategic partners and, we share our networks with one another, and good things happen when you find good people, you do right by people. And frankly, I learned that from Bill. And, we're amongst peers. I have someone on my team that, college athlete, like all the people that he hangs out with are just like him. He's not finding other people. So I know what conversation I'm going to have right after this.
Yeah, no question.
Exactly. And that's was my question was, let's talk a little bit about, I know that if I surround myself with people that are just like me, that's not going to be good for my organization. I know what I'm capable of. I know where I came from and what my experiences were. I've always found it valuable to have people that come from different backgrounds, different experiences. We can all come together, share ideas, and we're going to find a better solution. We're going to find a better way of doing things. Yeah. Can you touch a little bit on why that's the case, like the actual science behind it, Doug? Like, why is it that if you get a bunch of different people with a bunch of different backgrounds, whether it's religious, socioeconomic, race, why is that better than just going home?
So often, it's a great question, Bill. In the workplace, we look for people who often say, I want the best talent. And when they look at talent, they look at like credentials and things of that nature. But when you best talent is really the mixture of people from different backgrounds. And you can take average people who are diverse that will clearly outperform extraordinarily intelligent people who are similar, because the viewpoints and the way they see things are limited. So one of the stories I tell, several years ago, it was Amoco at the time, they hired a young woman on the marketing team for the first time. And so she came to work one day. She had 2 young children. She came to work. She said, look, every time I go to get gas, I got 2 little kids in the car seat. I got to go in the trunk, get the stroller, take it out, take my kids out the car seat, stroll up, pay for gas, come back, put the kids back in the car seat, put the stroller back in the trunk, pay for the gas. Take 20 minutes to get gas. Is there any way we could pay at the pump? So all the men sitting around like, pay at the pump. Well, you got to pay at the pump. Get your gas. So this had nothing to do with marketing capabilities. This just has something to do with a different lived experience, which impacts better ideas and better solutions. And so you just get new perspective based on experiences. Now everybody is happy she took that gas. She took that job. Everybody benefits when this happens. Now I don't got to buy those donuts that I don't need anyway. When I used to walk into that little shop, I used to pay for my gas and keep rolling. But these great ideas come from people who just see things differently. And that's the power of this topic. It's not your talent base. It's not your GPA. It's your view of the world being combined with other views of the world that produce unbelievable outcomes. And when your views of the world are limited, you're limited. And so that is the science behind it. Yeah.
Well said. I'll speak to my previous employer. Okay. So we were 5,000 internal employees, branch locations, maybe 50, 60 people to a branch, 95% white men in leadership when I started, 2006. And the conversation had started right around then and picked up steam, and the hiring practices were better. But I feel like the challenge that organization had at the time to really, really progress is that they only promoted from within. Okay. So the CEO today started in like 88 or something. The challenge there was we were doing the attracting and tried to do the developing, but no one was being retained. And my thought looking at that once I got into leadership was there's no like actual examples for people to look up to. So if you're a white woman, 22, 23 coming out of college, and all you see is white men in leadership and there's no path and then one robe along that. So like in my mind, that's what I was coming up with on what some of the challenges were to really, really progress. Over your 30 years, what are some examples of like current states of organizations? And then what does good look like in terms of people just doing a very, very, very good job in all aspects in your eyes?
Yeah, I think if we start with the lane you're talking about, which is the lane of talent and the lane of kind of getting people from all backgrounds, one of the things we spend a lot of time on is expanding the profile of success. And so sometimes our profile of success limits who's a possible candidate for our organization. So when I started my career at Procter & Gamble. And so to work at Procter & Gamble, you had to have 3 leadership responsibilities on campus. And so I played basketball in college. So I was a captain of the team and the fraternity guy. I had mine pretty easy. So I got into Procter & Gamble. Now, most of my buddies had like 3 jobs trying to get through college. They were busting their butt just trying to make it. They had no time for no leadership stuff. They were in survival mode. Now, I started my career selling toilet paper. And I knew any of my buddies could sell as much toilet paper as I could, if not way more. But they didn't even get into the mix because the profile led them out of it. So even who we look at to be talented, our biases show up in that process, which limits people to become a part of the organization. And so we had other things put in place to be able to look at different talent who had the same type of capabilities. And it's not that that's a bad criteria because they wanted leadership, but are there different ways to access leadership versus those experiences? So that's another big thing is your profile of success really suitable for all talent? Or is it just lined up to get that what you've been getting all of your life? And then the whole cycle is you got to bring them in. So it's that attraction, selection, development, actually giving them opportunity, and then retaining them is the way of advancing them. And so it's attraction, selection, development, advancement, retention. You got to look at all those systems. And when organizations are doing this well, one of the big components is, do we have an environment where people feel as though they can bring the best to the organization? do we have an environment? Because even if they come in talented and they're dealing with these subtleties, it creates a sense of disconnect to that organization. And one of the things that people of color and those who've been underrepresented are dealing with is that we can be super talent, but at times they'll treat us like we're average. You know, so they'll take a superstar. I was working with one client. They said, Doug, it was an engineering company. They said, do you have any minority engineers from Northwestern? I said, which one of you went to Northwestern? Y'all went to like Boo Boo State, but you want all the black people to come from Northwestern. You see what I'm saying? And so the standards that they put on those who are different are crazy. And they're just as average as you want to be in these big roles, but it's their capability and confidence. Give other people a chance to have that road to success. So we put standards on different people, which are, and so we used to call it the Colin Powell theory. You gotta be Colin Powell, you know, the best everything to get the job. If you're not number one in everything, we won't give you the role. No, you're not number one in everything. Why do you expect that from those who are different? And so a lot of this work, when we're working with companies, we get into their psyche of how they look at talent to be able to shift that. And we're not talking about lowering standards. We're talking about expanding talent. It's not lowering standards, it's expanding talent to make sure you get the best people from all backgrounds.
Can you speak a little bit more to what good looks like in terms of environment? Maybe some specific examples. You mentioned a few, but like when what pops up to me is, hey, I might not be able to speak up around my opinions because leadership doesn't allow that, you know, for example. So what are some other environmental related, culture related items that maybe, you know, limit some of what we're talking about?
Yeah, no question. The new word that we're using a lot, because inclusiveness has been the word that has driven this industry. And we're using the word like empowerment is the word that should be driving this industry. So sometimes we're included, but not empowered. So we're at the meeting, but our voice is little. And so the key things that identify cultures that get this is the power that people feel around their perspective being valued and leveraged. And that's one of the examples of an environment where people feel, because in many environments we have what we call this. So if I work for Bill and Bill talks, you go like this, we call this chicken eating corn, you know. We just nod heads and you don't really get empowered people, you get go along people.
Yes, man.
Yeah, yes, man, no question. Or yes, woman, yes, people, yep, no question. Now, empowerment is interesting because in order to empower people, you have to believe that difference is going to enhance us. And so we talk about, you know, you got to get to that place of valuing differences and empowering people in order to get them to operate at their best. I think the other thing that good environments have is equal access to opportunities to grow. You know, so many times we take our favorites and give them the best assignments. Many times we take our favorites and put them in that special training program. One of my clients, they had this Harvard leadership program. And once you went there, you were almost automatically promoted. And so they had like 35% people of color in their organization, and 2% went to that program.
Gotcha.
That might be considered a problem. You know what I mean? So you got to give these opportunities for growth and development. And that's an environment that is very powerful. I think the third one is you need to understand the unique capabilities or unique cultural dynamics that people may need. So a lot of my colleagues will call me up. They say, hey, Doug, I want to go to this women's leadership program. I want to go to this millennial leadership program. And they want to be around people with like backgrounds. And they're not being divisive. They're trying to empower themselves to be most effective in my organization. And so what we'll say, no, don't go to that program, go to the normal program. But sometimes they got to go to programs with people like them that are talking about the same concerns to help them grow in being the best person they can be. So that's real big in that talent place as well. Yeah.
Well said. Hey, Doug, we have a question from Sarah. I'm going to try this and see if we could turn her video on so she can ask it.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, are you there? Saw you raise your hand. Sarah?
There's another one I have seen too.
Yeah, Barbara had a question. Hold on a second. Let me pull that up. I'll ask it for you. So Barbara asked, how do you have a productive conversation with people who insist on defending all lives matter? Great question.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, we even do a lot of that within my company. So the reality is that the truth is all lives do matter. And then the other truth is some lives are hurting a lot more than some others. You know, so I never fight the all lives matter mindset because they do. But some people are not hurting as much. So therefore we need to focus on the hurting if we're going to really have all lives matter. And sometimes when you're hurting, there's special attention needed to drive a change so that they feel that value as it relates to all lives mattering, because they're not feeling that today. And the story I tell, if you break your arm, you know, you got to do rehab on your arm. You don't like your arm more than your leg. It's just your arm is broke right now. And so when there are things that are broken, we got to pay special attention to the broken to keep the whole body healthy. And if you don't fix that arm, pretty soon your leg's going to hurt, your other shoulder's going to hurt. It's going to impact the entire body. So the way I lean into it again is I say, yeah, you're totally correct. All lives do matter. And unfortunately, some lives are being undermined. And they need special attention to get that same perspective as it relates to all lives matter. And so I find success in bringing that discussion to the table. And then there are other people who just don't want to get it. And I was on a plane about a year ago. The guy said, Doug, I told him what I did. He said, Doug, can you answer a question for me? I always want to ask. I said, what? He said, how do you diversity people know if somebody is prejudiced? I said, they asked that question. He changed seats right away. We were in Southwest. He got up and left me. But the reality is that, you know, people in this mindset of not wanting to get it, don't kill yourselves attempting to get them to get it. And many times when you fight them more into their ditch versus out of their ditch. So again, you want to love them out of their ditch. Don't get overly excited yourself. And if they don't move, say, okay. Another plain story is a person who used to fly a lot. The guy says, Doug, I got a few questions for you around diversity. I've always wanted to talk to a diversity guy. So I said, well, what are you looking to learn in your questions? He said, I'm really not looking to learn anything. I just want to share a few people. I said, so you don't want to learn anything? He said, I'm asleep. I've been working all day. I'm asleep on the plane if you're not willing to learn anything. I just don't want to talk. I've been talking all day and they paid me good money to talk. And so I'm not going to be talking to you. If you want to learn, we'll go to the next stage. If you just want to stay stuck where you are, you don't need me to help you stay stuck. You can use me to grow. So we have to be valuable. Look at our time as valuable as it relates to who we're dealing with. Now, some of this is in the workplace. These are your colleagues, people you need. So you got to build that skill set. But be patient with that. You know, be patient, kind of use some of these tactics, and hopefully that will help.
So, Doug, along with what you had said earlier about get yourself some new friends and have some conversations, can you give us some ideas of what would be some good questions to ask that aren't offensive, but will get a dialogue going so people who've only experienced white privilege can really understand, or at least get a better opportunity to understand a different perspective?
Yeah, great question. I say the best thing that leads to a good discussion, Bill, is going into it with honesty and genuineness. So if I was to talk to you, Bill, I say, hey, look, this is kind of uncomfortable conversation for me. I don't want to offend, don't want to say the wrong thing, but I do want to learn. I do want to learn and I do want to grow from you as far as this topic. So you almost go in with confession versus trying to start with that perfect question. Now you want to come up with a good question, but also come up because people are dealing with their own stuff. So any question you ask some people is bad because they just mad. You say, how you doing today? Shut up. Okay, I didn't mean that. You see what I'm saying? So set that stage around, help me out here. Let's work through this together.
I'm looking to learn.
Keep your questions general in nature. Keep your questions general in nature. So a lot of people want to be like, you know, they get so specific, you're almost putting your assumptions on the table. You know, I knew it was hard for you growing up and you really probably had a lot of hatred. So how did you handle it? They're like, you don't know how hard it was for me. What the hell are you talking about? I had a lot of hatred. You see what I'm saying? You don't know what my life was. You see what I'm saying? So we go in with these mindsets we want people to confirm versus really understanding. And so the goal is I want to grow, man. And one of the best questions I ask is, look, what would you like me to understand in order to create a more trusting relationship with you? You know, what do you think I've done? In what ways am I showing up as it relates to maybe impacting you negatively? What would you like me to know about you that can enhance our relationship? So you're really going in not to interrogate and investigate their background, but you're going in to grow yourself and using them as a vehicle to help that. You know, and it's a different mindset when you take that on. Right now, there's a lot of guilt going on in society. So there's a lot, oh my God, I didn't know you black people were treated so badly. My God, that, you know, this guilt stuff is like, look, man, this stuff been going on a long time. Let's move out of that and move to a place of connection and unity where we can work together to kind of create solutions that's best for all. Yep. Makes sense?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Well said. Hey, for the attendees, if you have a question, there's a Q&A button, bottom center left. You could also put them in the chat. Thank you, Barbara, for your question. I got one. Doug, back to leadership. You have, we all did introductions before. You have CEOs, COOs, CFOs in the room. And the fact that they're showing up obviously means that they're looking to get seek to understand, get educated. They have a responsibility for their organization to show up in a certain way. Yeah. I've known from working for other leaders that I could sniff out very quickly how invested a leader was into anything. Hey, there was an initiative around marketing. Well, he makes fun of the marketing person all the time. It doesn't include the marketing person in any of the group conversations. Like he's not interested in the marketing conversation. Yeah. And employees, especially with how sensitive this is, and with general heightness around employees looking to see how organizations, be it the leaders that lead those organizations, are showing up. What have you seen in working with leaders around maybe tools or resources or things that they could be doing day-to-day, actionable things that could either improve their education around this topic or create that environment that you were talking about previously?
Yeah, great question. So let me, I'm gonna go a couple of different directions here. So we have what we call an executive commitment journey, where we help executives become committed to this process. And it's about moving leaders from approval to commitment. Because many leaders will approve it. They'll say it's good, but they're not committed to it. And so the three components of that journey is define, declare, and demonstrate. So define success, be able to speak to it effectively to all audience, and then demonstrate it in your behavior and in the results that you achieve. Now, the 5 principles for executive leadership is 1, to understand the business value for your organization. Integrate this into your business. Don't make it a separate effort, but integrate this into your business. Behave consciously inclusively. You know, behave in a way that shows that you're consciously inclusive yourself. And so that's valuing, embracing differences. That's authentic communication. That's managing privilege. You know, the white fragility, those subtleties that others don't have to deal with, or do deal with that you don't have to deal with. So it's really instilling those values. The next one is expanding your network, which we talked about. And then the last one is kind of driving accountability. You know, because you know, as you mentioned, you know when the leader is really committed to something, because you see how often they speak to it, who they bring to the meeting, and what they drive. So those are like the parameters for leaders to be able to kind of drive this commitment. Now, when you expand your network, be open to listen and learn and grow from that network. So that's the one I'm pushing a lot, because I'm talking to some great people in executive roles who are just unenlightened and unaware, and they've lived kind of a siloed life. And they want to call me all day. I'm like, look, man, you gotta expand your network. You gotta get some more people into your network that can support you here. And sometimes that's not inside your organization, unfortunately. So find yourselves in associations and other places where you can kind of get that insight. Yeah.
I was part of an organization where, you know, there was a stark contrast between, hey guys, we're hiring Doug in the Kaleidoscope group. He's going to come in. I'm going to take the afternoon off. He's going to teach you guys some stuff. I'm going to get out of here. Yeah. And being part of that conversation and leading from the front. And yeah, to my earlier point, it gets sniffed out pretty quick.
And many times, as you're saying, Tim, they don't know what leading from the front looks like. You know, they need help saying, here's what leading from the front looks like. And it's different than approving it. It's committing to it. You know, it's committing to it. And so there's another model we use that says, you know, leadership commitment, the first level is resistance. The second level is acceptance, where you say, okay, why not? I'll do it. The third level is buy-in. You see the value. The fourth level is engagement, where you're a part of the process. And then the fifth level is commitment, where you're driving accountability for others. So we have leaders and they'll say, well, right now I'm at buy-in. You know, I haven't gotten to engagement and driving accountability. Okay, well, let's work with that to kind of get you there. So those are those levels of commitment that we help to instill as well.
Doug, we have a question. Carl Cutsmode. What's up, Carl? Good morning. This is very well said, and I think it's relevant. Most of the conversation today seems focused around race and gender in the workplace. Curious to know if Doug's approach may be different in expanding the conversation to include the disabled, LGBTQ community, and veterans in this discussion. I would think that these populations may not be as obvious as protected class in the workplace. That's very true, especially now. Doug, what would you say to that?
Yeah, no doubt. I think I was at a conference and it was given by Black Enterprise magazine, you know, and the guy said, I really don't think diversity focuses in on Black people enough, you know. I said, well, you know, diversity deals with a lot of different dimensions. Race is one of them. He said, but we need to focus totally on Black. I said, well, the name of your magazine is called Black Enterprise. The name of my magazine is called Diversity Magazine. So I believe all differences need to be valued. I think there's a lot of emphasis today on race, and it's getting heightened based on the sensitivities. But I think all dimensions need to be driven. And I think even more so than that, Carl, is that the cross section, they call it intersectionality in our business, but the cross section of dimensions needs to be valued. So I'm a baby boomer, African American male, and I have like 3 African American males who are millennials. And I have a heck of a lot more in common than a white baby boomer male than these 3 millennial African American males. So it's no longer even isolated dimensions. It's the combinations of dimensions that give us this sense of how we see the world, our economic background, our status. So yes, when we drive diversity and inclusion in organizations, we deal with all dimensions, for sure. And I think right now the emphasis has been put in this racial box, but that's not the case at all. You know, it's really about, and again, when we look at the word unity, which is the one we're driving, that is about everyone being valued and leveraged. Now, here's the trick, though. I want to mention this trick. Because the trick is whenever people hear, you know, someone talking about a dimension, we'll jump to the dimension that's most important for us. So I've been in rooms where we'll be talking about women issues, and the black guys say, what are we talking about women issues for? Blacks got more issues than that. The young people are the real problem. We never talk about this. So right now, what the industry is doing is fighting for dimensions, and ain't none of us getting ahead. Because we're not unifying and supporting each other and saying, okay, to talk about another dimension does not diminish yours. Let's stay in the moment and deal with whatever we're dealing with. So that dimensional fight is becoming a big issue for diversity. And those who have it all, okay, so y'all fight it off, we'll stay in power versus being able to value everyone and move collectively to a place of unity. Yep.
We have another question from David. David, good morning. Thanks for the question. He states, we have trouble finding diverse candidates to even interview, particularly African-American candidates. What can we do to have more opportunities to interview diverse candidates?
Yeah, that, you know, obviously each industry is kind of unique around who you can find. One, you have to expand your resources around finding them. So before I got into diversity, from 83 to 89, I was an executive search consultant. So I worked at Procter & Gamble, then I went to executive search, then into diversity. And so after a year in diversity, I created a minority recruitment process. That's what it was called. And I could find everybody, you know, but my network was set up. And so even when I was in the general workforce, I was finding people who were similar. So first, you got to expand your network around who you're going to and receiving information from and people from. Secondly, you got to look at the attraction of your industry as well, because a lot of people are going places where they feel they would be valued and they would be treated well. And so what must you do individually to say, how attractive is my industry to diverse talent? And then how might I present our industry a little bit different to those who are different to make them attracted to it? We had one client that was in Colorado, and they put out a minority recruitment packet, and it said, you know, the greatest skiing in the world or something. I'm like, that might not get you a ton of black candidates. You know, it may give you some, but skiing isn't the #1 opportunity. It's a great for Denver, but your recruitment package may sound a little bit different than the typical one in order to attract candidates, you know?
Well, And if I may interject, also there's great organizations like I See Stars, who's here, that really their mission is to pluck kids from the inner city that may not have access to opportunities and try and bring them into those. And there's just amazing, I've met lots of them. They're wonderful people. And so there are places to go where you can not only, fill out your diversity roster, but actually get wonderful people. And then to Doug's point earlier, even if they're not the A+, look great on paper, the fact is when we bring a bunch of diverse people together, we're going to get better results.
Yep. And I think what also is underneath what you're saying, Bill, companies are doing a lot of pipeline efforts. Because if you go look for people as seniors in colleges, you got to go in the 6th grade and start preparing them to be ready for you when they're a senior in college. One of my clients was Caterpillar, and Caterpillar had a Build a Bridge popsicle contest for junior high school kids. There's $1,000 to the winner, and you build a bridge with popsicles. And then after you build the bridge, these kids get excited about that money, and they say, you want to build real bridges? Become an engineer. Now they've hired about 20 engineers out of the Build a Bridge project because they went down and created that excitement. So I See Stars are creating that excitement at younger levels, empower those organizations, sponsor and support them to help you build that pipeline for the future.
Just speaking from the recruiting lens, I think it's much less okay, we need diversity in our organization. We have 2 open recs right now. We need to hire diverse candidates with these 2 open recs. You got to think of like a 5-year kind of view. Doug, you brought up resources. This could mean, talent acquisition specialist, HR generalist, HR manager on your team, spending more of their time on finding external resources for that. This could be employment branding, kind of comes to mind. What's the talent acquisition package? What does the website look like? What does the interview process look like? How are you having your organization show up even before they apply? You got to be thinking about things like that. And then the last thing I'll say is think about how many referrals that you've had in your organization. If you have 20 people, 200, 1,000, think about the percentage of individuals that were referred into your organization by other people within your organization. And this gets a lot easier in year 4 or 5 after you've kind of started that trend, and you're tapping into, now your networks, you have more friends, you're tapping into those networks a lot easier. And, the culture is changing. So you got to start somewhere.
Yep. One of the things that came to mind as you were sharing too, Tim, younger people, when they're looking for a job, one of the first things they do is go look at your executive team. They'll look at that rec, but they go straight to your board of directors, your executive team. If they're not seeing themselves, they don't want your job.
Good point.
So the other thing we have to do is create organizations where they see there's a possibility for me to get to a high level. Even though I'm a young person, you've made those moves. So that's another big piece of finding. And those organizations who have those people, trust me, people are running to get in them. They're running to get in those organizations and be a part of them. Yep, great question.
How is I've asked this question to several different people over the past 3 months, but how is you mentioned you have millennial children. How is the 22 to 30-year-old African-American male, female feeling right now? And what are their feelings, and what would be maybe some expectations that the general workplace is feeling right now? You mentioned attracting themselves to organizations that are doing this the right way, or to leadership that's there. But, speaking from the heart, what are the general feelings that are out there right now in your eyes?
Yes, it's real deep. I have 7 children. I have 6 boys and 1 girl. They're aged 37 to 23. And so I travel. I used to travel quite a bit to get away from them, but now I'm kind of stuck now. They're older now. They're out in the world. But, you know, they have grown up with a lot more diversity naturally than I grew up with. And so one of my sons was a wrestler. And so a lot of his wrestling buddies were white. And so when they got out of school and started working, one of them came over to the house. I was just talking to him. I said, "Man, how you like your job?" Good kid, young white kid. He said, "Man, I love it, man. It's a great job, but it's just so white, you know." And he was a white kid saying it's just so white because, you know, my kids grew up in Oak Park. And so they're just used to diversity as a norm. And even as a white, he was like, "I can't be in a place like this. All my friends have been diverse all my life." So one of the things that's happening with younger people is they want more of this based on life experiences versus it being more of an equitable scenario where my generation came from. I think the other thing in the younger generation is that they're really into the social movement and the social justice movement. And they, even within my company, they want us to go out and do a lot of the social justice work. So we primarily work with companies, but they're very interested in this better world place and working for companies that are really interested in this better world place. And so that's another big thing that we're finding in our young people. Who you are as a corporate citizen is almost as important as what type of jobs you're offering. It's a big trend for the younger people. And then I think, you know, they want responsibility early. They want roles early. And so most organizations look at responsibility through promotion. And we attempt to look at responsibility through just giving out real assignments and real opportunities to earn and opportunities to prove yourselves, and not saying, "Hey, you'll get that role when you get to this level." No, you want that role, we can get you there now if you're ready to perform. So that's the other big difference I think we see with young people. One of the challenges is how do they honor history with their colleagues who have been around a longer time. And some of them do that pretty well, but some of them will go the name calling route that, you know, we're old and we don't know what we're talking about and the world has changed. So there's work to be done in that arena. But I think young people get it, but I don't know if they know how to help others get it yet. So that's the work that they have to do to be able to take what they have learned and be able to instill others to help grow in the way that they have based on their natural upbringing in a different society. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Well said. And Doug, remind me, you know, we met a couple of years ago at one of Bill's events, and I remember you saying that you've worked with, you mentioned today, Caterpillar, much larger organizations. I think what's represented here is typically the smaller, medium-sized organization, 25 to, I'm looking at the names, up to 300 plus. I'm sure I'm missing some folks. Yeah. And I know we're kind of closing out on time. By the way, if there's another question or two for Doug, we could probably fit it in. But you know, for this group that's leaders, if they're walking away saying, "Hey, I want to make my organization better 5 years from now," and reverse engineer that today, what are some actionable things that they could take away from this conversation and start with their leadership team and you know, host a call maybe this afternoon about this?
Yeah, no question. It's interesting too. Right now, I think we're working with about, 78 clients are currently on the roster. And of the 78, about 20 to 25 maybe are under 1,000 people, and about 10, 15 are under 100 people. So there's a bigger emphasis today for smaller companies to do this right now. Obviously, they don't have the budget of a Caterpillar, but they have the interest and commitment. So we have diversified our support to every level of organization, and we almost find more enjoyment because it takes a long time to move a Caterpillar. Whew. Caterpillar average year of experience is 27 years. You know, man, you're talking about you got to get your axe out and knock down some mountains to move that place. So we'd much rather connect many times with places where there's an easier connection. But I think the key thing is to be clear on your vision of success for this work. And there's 5 components to your vision of success. One is, how is this good for your business? How does this strategically align with the direction you're going? How are you going to position your statements around this topic so that it has meaning to everybody? How are you going to measure success? And what are your areas of focus? And so just think about it, because this work involves a lot. It involves workforce, workplace, the marketplace, who you use as suppliers, and community. And so everybody's not taking on all of those, but what exactly is your vision of success? Establish that, and then drive and understand how this is going to help you be a better organization. And then I said, I think the second thing, which would be key for smaller groups, is to really just know how your people see the company. You know, it could be a little survey, it could be anything, but do you really understand the different viewpoints of how your people see the company? We know what we want them to see, but do we really know what they see today? So we have a vision, then we do an assessment that says, where are you? And then we create the strategy to get there. So most people call me wanting the strategy. And I said, well, where are you headed? What's your vision? That'll lead you to the best strategy. And where are you today? That's how you get there. So put that vision and assessment work in place as leaders. It doesn't have to be anything sophisticated. Just say, here's where we want to go, here's where we are, here's what we're going to do, and then begin that movement to get there. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna definitely do the survey. I think I'm really interested. It probably needs to be anonymous, I think, but I'm just really interested to hear what the team's wants, needs, thoughts are, how I'm showing up, you know, and create some sort of some sort of platform to be able to share that. I think that'd be very, very eye-opening.
Yeah,
for sure.
And there's simpler tools today that you can use in smaller organizations to kind of get at that. And that feedback, I love the way you're talking about it, Tim, just help you know what to do, where the strengths are, where the areas of opportunities, how they're seeing it. It's not even that you're doing it wrong, but here's what's taking place that can make you even better or more outstanding at valuing all your differences. Yep. Good.
I'm sure.
Bill, you doing all right, man?
It's a struggle for me today. I've been battling I think stomach flu or something. It's just been but this has been very educational, and I'm just grateful that you were able to take the time and join us this morning.
Yeah, excited. Glad to be a part of it. Today is a crazy day. I got 6 of these.
Wow.
I'm going to 8 o'clock tonight. You know, so I called my company. I said, I need a raise if I'm going to be working like this.
Hey, we appreciate you carving out the time for us, everything that you're doing. I'll share, contact information for everybody. Just, so we know everybody that was on the call. We made introductions on the forefront. Doug, if there's other folks if the folks in attendance want to reach out or learn more about Kaleidoscope Group, what's the best way to do that for them?
Yeah, so the number one way is through our website, which is KG, KaleidoscopeGroupDiversity.com. So go on there. There's a little tools and things like that. You can find out a lot about who we are, what we do. There's also a info website in there that you can send something to around your specific desires. There's also a little survey we have that where you are now as a company and how we can support you. And, if you want to talk, we'll call you back, have that discussion. A lot of times when you think about a consulting firm, you're like, oh my God, you're working there. We can't help. But we're committed to this work. And we reach out and try to support everybody we can. And we believe if you do good things come back. So don't believe in any way that you're not big enough, you don't have enough people or any of that other stuff. If I can love Bill, I can love anybody. I just want to
I'll take it, Doug.
I'm diverse in my love. I don't hold back.
That's
From
awesome.
anybody, but we'll support you in any way we can.
Thank you, Doug.
Kyle
It's great to see you.
Tutmo, how you doing, buddy? It's been about 25 years since I've talked to you, man. You're still asking me questions. That's a beautiful thing. Yes,
Glad to make that touch point for sure. Well, yeah, Doug, thank you so much again. Sounds like you have a busy rest of the day for sure. To the network that showed up, thank you for taking out the time in your busy day. We got a pandemic going on. There's a lot going on for all of us. Keep fighting the good fight. If you need anything from Bill or I, reach out. And of course, KG Diversity. So have a good rest of the day, everybody. Take care, Doug.
Thank you,
Thanks,
y'all.
Bill.
Take care, team.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.